Okay, we're live. Well, this year has been actually very enjoyable from what I have known. 2024 has gone by very fast in over just 12 months now. I'm sure as all of you can tell, I have a new layout for my dad's basement. Specifically because just recently, his girlfriend and her daughters just recently moved in. And he's already had me and my brothers all arrange into the basement, which we all then converted into our own bedroom. But anyways, this year has been quite fun for me. Let's see. Got a chance to see the new Inside Out movie. That was actually kind of enjoyable. And then after watching the second Inside Out movie, I was very eager to rewatch the first Inside Out movie. I know we're currently living in the, remake slash reboot and sequel apocalypse lately. And obviously people these days obviously don't give a crap about sequels anymore like they used to. Ever since, Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet. A movie that is still, to this day, being pointed fingers at ever since day one. That does not explain its rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes says this movie is actually pretty great. You people, on the other hand, just want to waste time pointing fingers at what the movie is. Anyways, lots has changed about Inside Out 2. For the past how many years, actually, has the movie been announced? Somewhere between 2015 or 2016? I don't know. Hold on a minute. I'm just, grabbing my phone. Let's see. But I completely thought this entire year was actually pretty enjoyable. Like, Inside Out 2 actually did pretty well. I mean, compared to what many people say about sequels these days, along with remakes and reboots. Let's see, but Inside Out 2 is actually very great. I mean, the first movie, on the other hand, because the first movie didn't exactly have, like, a proper main villain. And, like, the closest you had to a proper main villain was the Gloom. The Gloom is basically a giant black or gray thing that shows up that consumes not only the entire console, but affects anger, fear, and disgust, and make it so Riley can feel anything whatsoever. But yeah, Gloom was by far the closest you had to a proper main villain in towards the end of the first movie. And I mean, it was Anger's idea to make the idea of thinking that all the good core memories, the main 5, were created back in Minnesota. Therefore, we go back to Minnesota and make them again from scratch. That's not how memories work, by the way. You're just full of conspiracies. And yet, he actually gets away with it. Literally. He manipulates Riley to, quote, take her mother's money in order to get that. And then he pretty much has her or literally walk her ass all the way down to a bus stop. I don't know about you, but I would have never. Like, who would imagine someone at that age walk into a bus stop all by themselves with no adult supervision? Because I'm certainly almost one of those people, considering I'm going to be 17 next year, next 2 months from now, February 23rd, next year. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to next year is my 17th birthday happening next year. And boy, have I'm starting to think, what should I do for my 17th birthday? I mean, I was thinking do something like, let's see, I've done Roller Magic earlier this year. There's what, RPM Raceway. There's what, RPM Race. The movie theater that's nearby the Poughkeepsie Galleria, that's next to RPM Raceway. Yeah. As for Christmas this year, I'll be right back. I have actually gotten my hands on some pretty good things for Christmas this year. Some Kamen Riders, as here's one of them. You can see this little stand right here I just use as a rack to hold all the other accessories, the alternate morpher design, the alternate hands. If I could... Oh wait, the hands are right here. No, wait. Here. And I love the fact how he has like almost the same head design as Motormaster from Transformers. He has like the box looking Minecraft head. Now this one is... I don't know if you all can read that. Can you please... That's... I don't know, it's one of them. Here's... This one is... Wizard Armor. Like a mixture of the red, black, a bit of gold and silver. And the back section, unfortunately the back section has a habit for popping off too easily. So it really doesn't really let you mess with the like tail pieces all that well. So he too also comes with an alternate pair of hands, as you could see. And then finally, this one being Gemma Armor, I think. So basically had like a bunch of orange like feel to him. He's got like the spider like arms out his back, and got the mixture of like silver, navy, blue. And it comes with a pair of dual-wielding swords, and also comes with a little, if I could get this off, some kind of little Transformers-esque mini-con. okay, look, I have not seen this particular season of Kamen Rider. I've only seen like Kamen Rider Build so far, Kamen Rider Zero One, and Kamen Rider Saber. I think those are my only personal favorite Kamen Rider seasons I have seen so far. Oh, the Ultimate Morpher design fell off, attached onto the back of the rack, so somewhere right here, and just rests there. Or I just put it behind the stand for now. Okay, what else? You got the Gundam. This is the RX Gundam. Now, oddly enough, I already have a real grade version of this guy, but the high grade version is actually a lot easier to build, specifically because there's no like endoskeleton, the fingers are not on ball joints, and the friction joints in it actually feel pretty well. And it's all around actually pretty great. Since the real grade version had a habit of its left and right legs just becoming undone whenever I messed with it, and while I was building the real grade version, the part of the knee section right here where my finger is pointing, the knee section broke when I was testing out the knees, and it just broke the knee section, and me and my mother had to hot glue it together again using a hot glue gun in order to actually fix it. And now I'm not gonna even bother messing with the real grade versions' knees after what happened. So there's that. I'm off to the side. Let me get the other thing out. Let's see. Here is a Star Wars esque mecha suit. You can see here's Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing outfit. Oh, X-Wing pilot outfit, I meant. And the chest section just folds down like that. He goes in there, put the chest back up. I'm going to be honest with you, it actually reminds me a lot of something out of Infinite Stratos. For those of you who obviously don't know what Infinite Stratos is, I've been watching it lately. Infinite Stratos is basically a show about where this male person, he attends a all-female school because he's the only person in existence who can interact with IS Max. And little does he know that his sister-in-law happens to be his teacher, and also little does he know that a former friend of his when he was a lot younger attends the exact same school as him. And then later, another one of his friends that he knew from way back when also shows up attending the school with him. And you see, like, they have, like, the gun and the... I don't think I've ever seen Lego attempt to do, like, a rod, like, this particular length. considering how, and as far as the elbow joints go, the elbows are just stuck in like that position. So like they're not gonna expect any like elbow movements nor the knee movements. The ankles are on a ball joint, they can move whatsoever. The X-Wings are on ball joints too. I was expecting to be more on hinges than a ball joint of all things. That's about it. Next I have what looks to be the Hogwarts Express, but this is actually from a LEGO toy line called Railway Warriors, and they actually make this one look exactly like the Hogwarts Express from Harry Potter. And while I was busy building this, I was trying to look up on YouTube if there's any videos relating to this engine, and it turns out there's not really that many results on YouTube of Railway Warriors, but you can clearly see that the whole is connected via ball joints. So you got like the engine and the tender. The engine itself technically looks like a 440, referring to 4 pilot wheels up front, 4 driving wheels, no trailing wheels. The tender design is pretty basic. The passenger car, on the other hand, has like this weird, almost like over-wire system that electric diesel engines use. I am not too sure if that's even a thing. But the arrangement of wheels is somewhat reminiscent of the passenger cars used in the United Kingdom. With the 060 wheel arrangements and with the split out apart. And here's what the train looks like fully assembled. Now there is also the robot form, which I'm not going to be able to show you since it basically just involves taking this entire thing apart. Yes, rip it completely apart and then rebuild it into the robot. That is something I'm completely not interested in, so be gone. Now the last two, I think, got a Funko Pops of both Pickle Rick and, no, not Pickle Rick, Rick Sanchez. I got Pickle Rick for my birthday earlier this year. And Ghostface from Scream. Let me show you one side. See, there's also a jumbo version of Ghostface, but I just think I have the current, and then the size and the anything about Funkos. I'm gonna keep them both displayed in their packaging, since most people who own Funko Pops just keep them in their box displays. Something else I want to talk about. So you all know that the current whereabout of my Dell computer's hard drive, and I have been bringing this up a few times throughout my videos ever since I made the topic of it. But my dad says he is currently trying to look for one. He did not forget, luckily, because I thought I was going to be done for. Speaking of my dad, actually, he told me that one of the gifts I asked him for Christmas. So like I think it was something Transformers. I think it was definitely Transformers Combiner Wars. He told me those were not supposed to show up around next week. So somewhere around the start of 2025. Again, the one thing I'm looking forward for 2025 is obviously my 17th birthday that's happening next 2 months. How do we decide what I'm gonna do for a video wise? I mean, do you just want me to guys to do like live streaming or just like me doing like what? I mean, I could probably answer you, or you guys could like ask me in the in the chat, or like because I was potentially thinking, hey, why not just go to Best Buy and get my Dell computer fixed for my birthday? I could tank it up with mom and dad, but then for it won't be as exciting as what I have. What else is coming next, anyways? What else? So I basically 2024 was everything that you could thought. Movie wise, lots of movies this year have done somewhat well, like Inside Out 2, but then you obviously have the introduction of Megamind 2, and no, I'm not even kidding. Megamind 2 is just what I can describe as weird. Some people said it is literally the absolute opposite from what the first one was from so many years ago. Not even kidding. Like, pretty much all the actors from the first movie have not returned. No, not even Megamind's actual actor, Will Ferrell. He's just for some reason gone. Minion, for some reason, has been renamed into Chum. Huh? Was it because DreamWorks was getting sued and also various lawsuits from Illumination saying that they're infringing on the Minions from the Despicable Me movies and the Minion movies, since those are technically prequels before the actual events of the movies from after the Minions movies. Despicable Me 4. Many people said that this one was it was somewhat of a disappointment for the rest of the Despicable Me series. I mean, when I last checked on Rotten Tomatoes, I actually found out that its rating is around 50, somewhere around the 50s. So that's about somewhere between the whole not bad and not good. So therefore, it's just somewhere in between. Moving on, actually. Anyways. I somewhat found Despicable Me to be somewhat enjoyable in terms of the cast of characters. I mean, I generally enjoyed. I mean, the Mega Minions. I mean, I love the concept that Illumination attempted to do like this whole homage and parody off of the Fantastic Four, maybe the Avengers. I mean, I also enjoyed Maxia Lamal on how Will Ferrell tries to give him a French like accent. And I also enjoy the whole "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" song that was heard towards the end of the movie, where Maxium and Gru were singing it together, literally being sung by Steve Carell and Will Ferrell. That was not. And I found that part to be somewhat catchy. I mean, it's not every day you have people in the prison putting on a show for the prisoners. But anyways, if you all thought that Despicable Me 4 was a huge letdown compared to the rest of the Despicable Me series, then I don't know what we expect, what Illumination has planned for for the rest of the series moving forward. But hey, Illumination is going to try their best to somewhat keep the series alive for years to come. Another movie I want to talk about would be the SpongeBob the Sandy Cheeks movie. The movie itself was also made in honor of celebrating 25 years of SpongeBob, being one of the most popular television shows in television history from once upon a time. And let me tell you, obviously this was one that was just weird. I mean, yes, I know that throughout all the other previous SpongeBob movies, they go through a phase of animation. It started out strong with the first SpongeBob movie, which was just a cross between 2D animation and with real life actors in it. Fun fact, the Cyclops himself is actually played by Neil Ross, who also happens to be the same actor from a few Transformers characters, and also the Tower, and also Doc from the original 1991 Little Engine That Could. Moving on. What else? But it was like the second movie, Sponge Out of Water. I mean, it started strong with having the first being also for 2D animation and live action for the first half, but as we enter the second half, we enter 3D. Whoa. You won't know how to do the whoa sound. Come on, you know I had to. Moving on. This Sandy Cheeks movie, on the other hand, takes the whole cross between 2D animation and real life and just takes it to a whole new level with using CGI. Nope, not even kidding. And the whole main villain in this movie, Tsunami. I'm sorry, I just found it funny. Who names a person Tsunami? I mean, unless you're trying to make unless to be funny, but this movie obviously had that part funny. Come on. I found Tsunami to be somewhat funny. Tsunami's goal in the movie was to bring SpongeBob, was to completely kidnap and abduct Bikini Bottom, and then have SpongeBob and his friend and turn them into what? Toys? Her freaking backstory is just weird in a way where it's just like it, how they have her head photoshopped on someone else's body. If I'm gonna be real with you, it just looks like something out of a YouTube poop collage. And that's not just me, come on. We've all seen like weird stuff like that before on YouTube poops. But yes, it was weird, and I hopefully I don't need to ever explain why again. And also, it is somehow later revealed that she is a robot. Android? What? So how did... My only other concern I have with the movie was that they had it completely aired over on Netflix. Um, hey Paramount, I think you have the wrong streaming service. No, I'm not even joking. Oh, they literally had this thing on Netflix as opposed to like Paramount Plus, considering that this movie was actually made by Paramount. And yes, of all the SpongeBob movies, this one is undoubtedly the weirdest of them all. Not even kidding. It's weird. It's just mind blowing, and yes, it is definitely the weakest of the SpongeBob movies by a long shot. Do I even bother you recommend watching it? Sure, just so you can actually get a taste on just how weird the movie itself even is in terms of what they do with their characters. It is completely weird. It is going to completely destroy your mind and completely change the way you will forever watch SpongeBob. Because of just how overly weird it is. Like, in comparison to something like Evil Bong, which, don't get me wrong, I found Evil Bong to be completely ridiculous. Unfortunately, I technically only seen the first Evil Bong movie on Prime Video. Evil Bong is just that weird. I mean, too weird, actually. Evil Bong is also a movie of where is talking sentient jar, referred to as the Evil Bong herself, in this case Evie, which by is just is she's weird. Yes, she's the main villain of the movie. Um, and basically, once someone sucks into the bong, they get in the bong and a bunch of horrible, atrocious women who are completely topless. Yeah, I think I definitely now completely. I'm completely now. I think I just found the new weirdest B movie. For some of you who are probably new to my channel, I have a somewhat passion for weird and ridiculous movies. I mean, both physically and literally. Movies that are just so weird. You would ever ask yourself, why would someone make something like this? Anyways, Inside Out, as I previously mentioned, although there's something else I want to talk about Inside Out too, is that we get introduced to new characters in the second movie, not just new emotions that make up a person's mind, with one of them being anxiety, the movie's quote unquote main villain. I mean, sure, the closest, as I previously mentioned, was Gloom, even though Angers is the one who came up with the idea for trying to force Riley to run back to Minnesota because he believed that all of the core memories were made back in Minnesota. And if you want her to be happy, then we'll go back to make Minnesota and let's make more. Yeah, but if you think about it for a minute, the original place that they used to live is now no longer and has possibly been brought in by a different family. Not to mention, Riley would have been completely orphaned, and because she basically abandoning her own parents and also completely alone with no one. Not to mention, she's only what? How many years old was she in the first movie? I honestly don't remember because it's been that long ever since I watched the OG. And then by the time Gloom starts taking over, Anger realizes his big mistake. Sadness, on the other hand, was able to reverse the effects of Gloom and also convince and get Riley back home. The second movie, on the other hand, we have Anxiety, who is an absolute control freak and is basically that one. Anxiety is a feeling that makes us feel nervous, worries, and is constantly anxious about everything. Something else I also want to talk about was other characters like Embarrassment, who, if I'm being completely honest, looks like something out of Smiling Friends with the way how Pixar designed him. Then you have Ennui, which, for those of you wondering, means boredom in French. For those of you non-French speakers out there. Then you have envy, an emotion who wants to be better than others. I mean, who looks up to others, I meant, actually. Excuse me if I ever said that, actually. And then, who else am I missing? Actually, I think it's everyone. But Anxiety basically says that her plan was to make the best future for Riley. Anxiety specifically claims that she is doing the right thing, when in real life, Anxiety is doing nothing but putting too much stress on her, and this even becomes something she later realizes during the movie's climax when she completely finishes her version of the sense of Cell, when it then chanted, "I'm not good enough." And now you'll be asking, all this was for nothing? You came, no, seriously, I'm not even joking, Anxiety. You just came all this way just so you can put enough stress on her, and that was your end result. And also, I know she's basically the next newest villain of Pixar's and Disney's roster of twist villains. Twist villains have been pretty much well known for pretending like they're actually friends with the main character of the story, but only when their true motives are revealed towards the movie's climax or before the climax, and you realize they're actually against the main hero, and realize that they have been completely fraud all along from the moment they first met up until this point. Some of them I find actually quite enjoyable in a way. I mean, El Macho from Despicable Me. I somewhat enjoyed his character. The fact he's also played by Benjamin Bratt, who, fun fact, also happens to be the same actor who would do Ernesto in Pixar's Coco how many years later? Only he's not El Macho, not really that much of a mighty Mexican man he once was, and also became a musician. I'm being real with you, I technically enjoyed El Macho more than Ernesto. I mean, don't get me wrong. Coco is still what I describe to be, if not one of Pixar's most majestic movies of the 2010s, just because of how well done it is and how it's just in a way that makes me go with. That is just my opinion, though. And also the way how or is looked up to by the main character of the story, Miguel, much like how Charles Muntz in Up looked up to his idol, no, no, how Carl in Pixar Up looked up to his idol, Charles Muntz. However, it isn't until him and Russell realized that the man that he used to love from so many years ago has actually gone on an insane journey just so he can restore his his legacy and reputation. And he will go by any means necessary if it means attacking someone else who also happens to be around the exact same age as him, and also trying to threaten a minor by basically tying him to a chair and then threatening to die by having him dunked into the sea, which is basically would basically be child murder. That exact same format happens again in Coco, but ultimately it's a bit more of a twist. In fact, he also, in fact, Ernesto would rather have Miguel and Locke thrown into a pit and completely telling him that he's gonna die in less than 24 hours by sunrise if he doesn't make it back to the real world. So basically, he's now just condemning him to die in in his world. Well, now that you think about it. And then when anxiety has the main 5 emotions bottle up in a jar and have them sent to the vault, basically a prison that protects all of Riley's secrets. You're right, there are suppressed emotions, physically and literally. But then, we meet by far some of the best characters, I mean, just best, but weird. Bluefy. Bluefy is basically a character from a preschool show Riley used to watch way back when. Bluefy is ideally a cross between stuff like Blue's Clues, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Dorothy Explorer, and Pee Wee Herman. Yes, he even takes aspects from Pee Wee Herman. And he also has his own Toodles/backpack summoning tool. And also, like in every cartoon shows, the characters must always ask the people watching the show by acknowledging the existence of the fourth law, asking them about a series of questions, which usually takes about how many minutes to solve. I'm not going to get down to that. Okay. Moving on. Then we also get to introduce to Lance/Blade, someone who looks like something out of Final Fantasy, and also a video game character that Riley used to have a quote-unquote crush on, despite his somewhat ridiculous power move. Again, What the heck? Basically, we like if you were ever playing Smash Bros. And you would get ask yourself to play as a character with an absolute horrible, you would ask yourself, why would they ever have a horrible Smash move like that? It's like asking yourself to lose on purpose, now that you think about it. But yeah, it's a joke then again. And then Deep Dark Secret, who also, surprisingly enough, happens to be played by the same actor who also does Embarrassment. No, surprising actually. Moving on. Deep Dark Secret gets the main five emotions out of their jar, and now we have to play the summoning game. Bluefy tells us that his magic pouch named Pouchy has the tools they need to get the heck out. Okay, one, I just find, I find Pouchy to be so ridiculous because he just got some weird googly eyes. And yeah, it just looks so ridiculous. I love it. I also love the way how Anger just aggravatingly assaults Pouchy when he summons him for the climax by sticking his hand in his mouth. I just found that part to be so funny watching it. Aggravated assault. Something else you need to realize in the movie is that the actors who played Fear and Disgust have been replaced. And no, it's not because their actors have a lack of performance, but it's because, well, if Disney wasn't stupid enough to just recast two of their characters. But then again, the new voices actually turn out to be not as bad as you think. I mean, granted, in comparison to when Chicken Run 2 had the actors for Ginger and Rocky replaced, I mean, Rocky now being played by Mel Gibson. No, not Mel Gibson, Zachary Levi, who is what some of you may know from Flynn Rider from Disney's Tangle back in 2010, and also a few other familiar roles. As for Ginger, on the other hand, she has been recast by Thandie Newton, which I'm pretty sure some of you, if not all of you, may recognize her from movies like Mission Impossible and Solo, a Star Wars story. If you haven't seen those movies, I completely suggest you try watching them. As far as Fowler, on the other hand, also had to be recast, specifically because his original actor just passed away years ago. So therefore, I feel like it made sense to recast Fowler since his actor has been dead for like who knows how long. So yes, it makes somewhat sense to have him recast. And how do the new voices for them? How do the new voices for them sound? You may be asking. Well, I'll possibly give it a 5 point. I'll basically give it a 5.5 out of 10. Because from all I know, the actors themselves eventually tried their best to mimic what the original actors did, but not bother to bring back Ginger's original actor. Julia Sawara has left so much controversy with many people who who enjoy Chicken Run, and Armin's reason for it is just ridiculous. Because they have mentioned in an article that Julia Sawara was too old to reprise her role as Ginger after just 23 to 24 years later. That's honestly just plain old dumb. Also, I feel like this was just shit set up from the start. Saying that Ginger's OG actor needs to take a retirement because she's past the phase of puberty is just ridiculous anyways, Armin. With that one specific line you said, that Ginger's original actor is too old to reprise her role after so many years later, feels like a bit of an insult to her original actor. Or now that you think about it. In fact, it just sounds like more of an actual setup for Julia, which has let her completely distraught, and also did in fact prove to Armin that she could in fact do the role as Ginger just well. Well, regardless of how old she is. And yet, despite all that she still eventually got recast, leaving her just completely in the dust. But Inside Out 2, on the other hand, the new voices actually turned out to be not as bad for Fear and Disgust. I mean, honestly, I also enjoy the fact how Disgust kind of sounds a lot like Squidward from SpongeBob. And also, not to mention the design for his nose looks a bit like Squidward as well. In the end, recasts, do you think, affect the characters? Well, I guess not. But anyways, the end of the Inside Out 2 ends with pretty much all the emotions now begin along with each other, and Anger has made amends with Pouchy. I just find it funny how Pouchy just takes up his entire leg space. He's in that final shot with all the emotions back together. Joy can help me actually take a breather whenever she feels like it. And yeah, and get this, they're already making preparations and plans for a third Inside Out movie. Ooh, wow, can't wait to see how that one turns out. My opinions for it, by any chance, will probably range somewhere between either if this is a good idea or just another excuse to make money. But get this, the movie itself actually did pretty well in the box office and Rotten Tomatoes, at a total of 97% on critics on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, I am actually quite surprised now of the critics' scores on this movie on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, absolutely. Like, by far the best Pixar has done in a long shot. In a while, actually. Anyways, if Inside Out 2 turned out to be an absolute banger of this year, then who knows what Inside Out 3 will bring us. Quite literally. I'm actually quite excited for a third installment, if it's either worth it or not. Let me see. Don't worry, I'm just checking my iPad's battery. Around 15. I got like a few more minutes of recording, I guess. Dimension. But honestly, Inside Out 2 was just everything we could thought for. In fact, Rocco Tar has even done a video, an hour-long video, saying that Inside Out 2 could have been possibly, if not Pixar's newest, best, perfect sequel this year. And yet, in the past, he has made a video saying that how Toy Story 2 could have also been an absolute perfect sequel. Literally, an absolute masterpiece, by the way. Former YouTuber All Done has also done a video saying that Toy Story 3 is also a perfect sequel. Everything you can ask for, as in purely flawless. Purely flawless, I hear you ask. Anyways. Yes, it's purely flawless in every way imaginable. Moving on. Beetlejuice. Now, listen, I have never been really that big of a Beetlejuice person. In fact, I didn't know much about Beetlejuice, other than the fact that it's made by Tim Burton himself. And, Tim Burton, the person who made Nightmare Before Christmas and a few other movies that you may know. His work is pretty is well done, but 35 years later, Beetlejuice did actually pretty well. I found it ridiculous my first time actually getting to know who Beetlejuice is, considering I'm not really that interested. It was not that interested in Beetlejuice at first, but now it is just ridiculous from what I can say. Michael Keaton is just an absolute banger. He's an absolute banger of an actor. Beetlejuice gave me this weird vibe and cross between characters like the Joker from Batman and, of course, William Afton, or specifically his form as Springtrap in Five Nights at Freddy's. Just a weird cross between those two characters into one physical hybrid. And yeah, I know that when I hear the name, I think that Beetlejuice is like the main character of the movie, considering that this is, actually Beetlejuice. However, he also technically serves as this movie's quote-unquote villain. And he also convinces the movie's main character to actually convince him to marry him, both when she was a teenager and later on when she is a fully grown adult in the second movie. But she only does it in a way to get back Astral, her quote-unquote daughter-in-law. It's been that long and you have a daughter now? Yeah, it's been too long, actually, compared to um, Chicken Run 2, where, yes, even in that sequel, the main characters have a child of their own now, and also in other sequels like The Little Mermaid 2 and one of the other Lion King movies. But ultimately, this one just feels like what's the word? I don't know. Astrolaria is manipulated by one guy who actually uses her in exchange to get him back to the real world. Which he actually tricks her anyways. Anyways, now that he has her soul, or her life force more specifically, she's now taken away by a pair of guards, only to somehow catch her long lost father in law. What? That's your dad? For reference, her father's name is Richard. As in, like, Richard from The Amazing World of Gumball. The only other father figure who is named Richard. Alright, first off, I have no idea how you were able to tell that was your father. Or just randomly assume. Or just guessing by his face. You know, I don't know anymore. It just is what it is. Moving on. The Train of the Great Beyond shows up. They end up trying to escape, but they end up on one of Saturn's moons? I'm sorry, how do you have a freaking moon, Mr. Beetlejuice? I don't know. Richard shows up to get them out of there. They spend a brief time being reunited with each other, and they get each other back to the real world for the climax of this movie. And once Beetlejuice is defeated, that's pretty much how the movie ends. Oh yes, Delia also ends up going take because she was killed off by venomous snakes. But hey, now she can at least spy on her family whenever she feels like it. Same thing with Richard. And I've also heard they're making Tim Burton would like to now do another movie just a few years later now. Oh, great. Can't wait to see how that now turns out. If it's going to be another weird cinematic. Another one of those weird cinematic disasters, or like, what? Or better yet, maybe something we will find ridiculous to laugh at. Moving on. Transformers 1. Basically an entire prequel on before the actual events of the, Transformers Generation 1 from like so many years back. In fact, it was made in honor of celebrating 40 years of Transformers. Studio Trigger has even done an entire anime-esque musical music of pretty much all OVA or anime music video of the 40 years of Transformers. This one. No, I'm not going to tell you how much. It's just. I never thought this collab will become possible. Hasbro collabing with Studio Trigger just so they can make this one anime music video. That turns out to actually be pretty enjoyable. And also, pretty much all the movies I've seen this year were actually proven to be quite enjoyable, but others could have used somewhat improvements in order to improve on their quote unquote critics on Rotten Tomatoes. You get my point. Anyways, I generally feel like that regarding what movie I've seen this year or have not, I still found it was somewhat enjoyable. Even if people would rather just accuse movies for being movies for what they are, or the characters in general, I'm not even kidding actually. But like when you have movies like Megamind 2, which apparently got literally, should I even tell you, literally 0 ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. This movie just completely destroyed, or could have almost in nearly completely destroyed everything about DreamWorks. Quite physically and literally, almost destroyed everything about DreamWorks as a whole. However, Megamind 2 actually had a point. Because Megamind 2 was actually supposed to be a quote unquote pilot episode in honor of DreamWorks working on a new Megamind series. Another TV show that DreamWorks can add to their collection of TV shows. Now, do not get me wrong, actually. I have never seen any of DreamWorks' TV shows, because, well, DreamWorks is more of a movie studio than, like, making money off of turning their movies into franchise, but it is a nice way to expand upon, it is a good way to expand upon the actual series in general as a whole regarding on what series it or what franchise it's about. And that is honestly something I would give DreamWorks a lot of credit for. But the amount of movies that DreamWorks has done, do they all seem like they're just that worth it? Maybe, maybe not. My opinion. I have never seen the Megamind show yet, however, but I'm pretty sure it's just weird. Just weirder than you can imagine in terms of like what they do with Megamind's character. It's pretty much just like if Will Ferrell just completely dumbed down his character into like something else that's not exactly what Megamind was intended to be. And yes, what a great way to ruin a cult classic, by the way, DreamWorks. No, 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 not even serious. This is ridiculous, actually. How ridiculous how he acts more like an idiot as opposed to like an actual genius. Consider that's why he's called Megamind, because he's super big brain. The Doom Syndicate were actually mentioned to be Megamind's quote unquote original supervillain team, but even though they're never exactly mentioned or ever seen in the first movie, so like that part kind of confuses me a bit. How like he was a member, how he's the leader of the Doom Syndicates, but it was never really shown in the first movie, so like this part technically catches me off guard by a long shot. Like too much actually. And the White House having Minions' name renamed into Chum, as in like the Chum Bucket from SpongeBob. I honestly don't know. This movie is just messing with my mind now. DreamWorks should probably rethink their actions on that one, honestly. In terms of like what they do with his character and just how so much about him just changed drastically. How Megamind, like the first movie shows us how Megamind went from zero to hero, and later begins to have a relationship with Roxanne, and someone who actually, and Megamind now goes through this entire, what it's like to have someone actually care about you, because at the beginning of the first, Megamind was just a complete no one until we realized, hey, being bad is possibly the one thing someone could be good at, so why can I be someone who's a super villain? And so he does, by pretty much smoke bombing the entire school, and he's sent back to prison, where he's eventually now an adult. Okay. But like, was making the entire Megamind sequel and later eventual TV series worth it? Because I mean, the series on Rotten Tomatoes hasn't been rated yet, from what I know. Well, because people say this is absolutely weird and is completely a way to ruin everything about Megamind as a whole. Anyway, let's kind of talk about. Um, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga that has recently now came out 2 years ago now, in 2022. It also feels completely amazing, by far the best Lego game we have gotten this so far. While I have already played through the previous Lego Star Wars games in the past, Lego Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars, Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga, viewed by on mobile, something about the Skywalker Saga just makes me scream the best Lego game of this year. Even if there are moments in the game that just completely messes with my mind to the point I want to create a storm, saying this level is just, the game is just too hard in some areas. The challenges are just ridiculously hard. But episodes 8 and 9 have never been done before in Lego form. Like, we had, like, the sequel, like, both the prequel and original trilogy in the Complete Saga, the events of the Clone Wars in 3, and now just The Force Awakens by itself as a one-off, as a standalone. Sorry, I was checking the things on my iPad. But here, it feels like that. It almost feels like that. It almost feels like that if it is absolutely establishing of what has happened throughout the past few years of Lego games. Like, it also has by far the biggest roster of DLC characters spanning from all the different Star Wars TV shows out there: Clone Wars, Rebels, The Bad Batch, Mandalorian, and Book of Boba Fett. I mean, The Force Awakens also had a large variety of DLC characters, all of which completely coming from different events and eras in the Star Wars universe. You specifically have events like um, the Clone Wars. Then you have the Bad Batch, the Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Solo, Rogue One, and a few others, and the addition of other DLC packs like the Troopers pack with different stormtroopers. I meant. Sorry if I got that confused. But the Force Awakens, on the other hand, I mean, yes, their DLC roster was also somewhat great and clever of them, despite pretty much the majority of the game taking place in the Force Awakens. And also the time they actually had physical dialogue and voice acting. Because in all the previous LEGO games, I mean, LEGO Star Wars, and even some of the older games like Indiana Jones, Pirates of the Caribbean, Harry Potter, they have all done like nothing but mumbling, as it was episode of Shaun the Sheep. Or heck, even Shaun the Sheep the movie, for God's sake. Up until that event, that is when they try to add physical voice acting for their characters, and it actually sounds just like if the movie itself was in Lego form, but completely ridiculous anyway. And actually, it does a good job of almost like if it was actual lines that was taken from out of the actual movie itself. And also, I enjoyed in general, and it has since then been like almost a fan favorite of mine. Anyways, I feel like with all that said, guys, you had enjoyed 2024. I hope you enjoyed everything that made this year spectacular. I certainly enjoyed everything about this year. I can't wait to see what 2025 will bring us. I heard a new Wallace and Gromit movie is coming out. Another fine addition to Wallace and Gromit, I believe. And so on and so forth. Anyways, for those of you who are new to this channel, please consider commenting, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and please turn on notifications so that way you get alerted when I upload a new video in the future. Please. But anyways, have a happy new year, everyone, and I hope to see you all very soon.